Right, now then, I've spoken before about Harmony Gold and the whole Macross saga. Now, as you may remember, Harmony Gold took 3 separate Japanese anime series, redubbed them, and created Robotech, the American version. Well, I say version of the American conglomeration, if you like, of all those 3 series. Now, you've seen this one before. This is an Excalibur, and this was also a Warhammer from Battletech. But again, there's so much cross-pollination of the various IPs involved that this has been a sort of an ongoing saga for some time as to who owns what, who has the rights to what, and so on and so forth. But what I didn't show you last time was some of the other stuff that I had, in detail at least, and also something else that I've just recently picked up. So I wanted to sort of bounce past the Warhammer version here and move on to something else. And one of the interesting things about this one is that this is actually a Matchbox toy rather than a Harmony Gold toy. The main difference is being slightly different coloration here and here. Not quite sure why they went for that as a slightly different option for Matchbox, but apparently they did. This one particular example has got very, very floppy joints. There's a gag there somewhere, but it does have this sort of concealed missile rack going on for it there. And that really seems to be about it in terms of sort of playability for this one. There's not a huge amount else going on. Its joints, as I say, are incredibly loose, but that may well just be a sign of this one's age and general sort of condition or lack thereof. But interesting toy in the hand, certainly, and not unlike robotic versions of Transformers, obviously. But this one doesn't do any transformations. So let's move on to something else. Let's move on to a pure Robotech toy. And I say toy, but this obviously is actually more of a doll/action figure. And this is Rick Hunter. And Rick Hunter is the eponymous hero of certainly the first series of Robotech. So he is the guy who flies the Valkyrie against the alien invaders. And he is a fundamental part of the Robotech series. He is the eponymous hero, as I say, of that first season. Now, I've seen these in toy fairs a lot. Like a lot. They're not expensive. I don't know why there isn't a sort of particular demand for them. Maybe it's a UK thing because we didn't get Robotech, to my knowledge, until we got it out on video, really. Possibly we had it on Sky, but I didn't have Sky, so I don't really know. I can't really comment on that. So I've never actually unboxed him. And his overall packaging is slightly ripped. It's somewhat sun faded as well. I mean, it's probably better on the back than it is on the front, actually, in some respects. So you can see there the Harmony Gold is, this is a very, very pure Robotech toy, because it's done by the American company that formed Robotech as a concept. I may have mentioned before, but at one point I definitely had. Now he's actually sealed in here. I can't believe he hasn't been out, but I suppose it's possible that he hasn't been out, which means that I'm going to need some scissors, ideally. Bear with. Now, most of the time I would have hesitated to do that, but as I say, these don't seem to be terribly expensive or that uncommon, so let's just go for it. I'm hoping that was the only piece of sellotape actually holding him together. Yeah. Getting there. It's an interestingly shaped box. It's a sort of, it's not your averagely shaped box, as it has to be said, but that's clearly what they went for. he's a big old figure. He's a big old figure. Okay. Let me just move the camera into a slightly different position so you can actually see this more clearly. So there he is in his horizontal state. Now earlier on today I was looking at the size of such figures. Let's have a look. So yeah, I mean he is big. So he's a good, actually, I mean, conveniently enough, he's about as long as this cutting board is, which makes him about 28, maybe 30 centimetres. So basically 12-inch figure, which is impressive. I should actually find a year for you. Let's have a quick look on the box, see if we can find a year. This is the sort of thing that's often very difficult to actually find because... Let's have a look. Raise Rick's left arm, his head turns to look at you. Okay, interesting. We'll try that out in a moment. I can't immediately see a date on there. That's not uncommon, as I say. So he is a lieutenant, age 19. He's a Veritech fighter pilot, i.e. he flies Valkyries. And I still can't see a date on there. Curious. Apparently it was distributed by NBC Limited, Chorleywood, Hertfordshire in the UK, it would seem. But yeah, I can't seem to particularly carbon date that one immediately. But I would imagine mid-80s, if I were to guess. But I'll see if the actual figure itself has got a date on it as and when. Now, I mean, it's properly sealed in, so I'm assuming this has never been out of the packet before. This I assume is a weapon of some sort. I mean, it looks more like a comb. It could just be a comb for his hair, couldn't it? I don't know, but anyway. So let's. Yeah, he looks like he's probably never been out before. So I think this is going to be more of an unboxing video than I perhaps first anticipated, because this has got the classic twirly wires to keep him in. Although that's interesting in the sense that I think twirly wires I thought twirly wires were quite a recent innovation in terms of securing toys in their compartments, but perhaps I'm wrong about that. Perhaps they've been around longer. There's also detritus falling out from him, so he's obviously been around for a while. Try not to throttle him as I get him out. It's actually easier said than done. Right, okay. See, what struck me actually when I was handling the box was how heavy he was. No offence, but you know, he is actually quite weighty. Now, is he going to stand by himself? Yeah, he kind of is actually. He kind of is. Okay. Yeah, that's quite. I mean, I'm quietly impressed by the fact that he can actually just stand up like that. I'm having to pull the camera back just to get him in full shot there. That's actually quite impressive. I mean, he looks almost like he could almost be a Thunderbird marionette. Those of you of a certain age will appreciate that as a concept. I mean, you know, he's got sort of a proper sort of straps on him, like he's got a sort of, you know, a flight suit on. He's got little boots, which is pretty cool. Got very sort of porcelainy looking hands as well. Great helmets. The that was a very genuine reaction to him having a very sticky helmet. Fnar. But you know, that is weirdly. I don't know whether that's sort of degrading over time but it's a little bit like the helmets the Centurions have from this era. It's sort of slightly vinyl. It's slightly soft. It's not hard at all. And I imagine that would then come off to reveal his hair. But I say he's standing remarkably well. So interesting sort of figure. I'm surprised he doesn't come with a weapon though, because that was definitely supposed to be a brush for his hair. His arms don't bend. He doesn't have any articulation on his knees either. So it's just a little bit of Just a little bit of sort of hip movement there. Oh, and his hips swivel. Now, what did it say? Raise his left arm and he'll turn his head. Oh yeah, it's trying, isn't it? I'm hoping that's still in shot. It's just a little, there's a fractional... Yeah, he is. He's turning his head. Just a little bit. That's quite freaky. I apologise in advance if this gives anyone nightmares, but there's definitely... Oh yeah, there we go. Look, there's a definite linkage, but I don't think it's quite the... I don't think it's quite the intended linkage. I think he's supposed to go up and then it goes in the opposite direction, but he's actually going to the right when he goes behind him. I'm hoping that was in shot for you. So yeah, it should have been. So you saw that. That's quite strange. That's quite strange, but okay, that's cool. He's got a little. Looks like you could actually zip down the front of him as well there. So I guess you could probably take the uniform off to wash it if you wanted to be particularly brave about it. But I'm not sure where the plastic would release to actually sort of do that. I don't know. You'd have to be particularly brave to attempt that one, I think. But I'm assuming that I can just release that and release his lovely, lovely hair to look at. Let's have a look at that close up. Yeah, that's very freaky. I mean, I have no idea how accurate this is. Thing is, that looks like a female face to me. That does actually look like a female face. I mean, your mileage may vary, but that looks like a female face to me. They've put a very sort of tried to put a manly sort of boy band hairdo on. I don't know. But yeah, I can see why he'd come with a comb, because he'd need one with that much hair on top. It's quite funny. So that's Rick Hunter. That is Rick Hunter. Okay, so I'm going to move on now, because I do have something else to show you, which is, I have to say, is more... I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to get his hair back in there. Okay, there we go. I've contained the hair. That is so sticky. Ugh. Okay, beautiful. He's not the cleanest, it has to be said, but anyway, okay, let's move on. Interesting figure. However, this is more in my ballpark. Let's have a look at this. Now, this confused me at first because it's been a long time since I watched the full Macross saga, or the Robotech saga, if you will, and I haven't been able to re-find my DVD set, but I remember, I think I actually encoded it for iPod, or what was that? There was another one, what's it called? It won't come to me now, but it was the sort of, when the iPod first got a video screen, when it first got like a smartphone screen, the iPod Touch, is that it? Yeah, it could be that one. Then you could play videos on it. So I think I had one of those, and I did a really small version of the Robotech series for that from my officially bought DVDs. So this mecha doesn't come from Macross, it comes from Mospeda, which is the third season of the Robotech series that Harmony Gold pulled together. So the full name was Genesis Climber Mospeda, and this is an Armo Fighter AFC 01 Legioss, and this is a variable geometry fighter. Now, the series itself was more well known for having motorbikes that transformed into armour for their rider. That's what people tend to remember, but this was also a mecha that appeared in the series, so it transformed from a jet to a mecha armour. And this was in sort of 83, 84. But the thing with this one is, this is produced by Gakken. And as you can see up here, now this one is not a Harmony Gold product, you see. And I came across this mention of Gakken in an auction. I wasn't looking for it. It was a proper auction house auction. And I looked at them and I thought, they're not Valkyries, so they're not Macross, but they do look vaguely familiar to me. And then it occurred to me that there were still jets in the Robotech series, even when it went into this strange, to my mind, very sort of odd version of Robotech in the third season, because it didn't really gel very well with Macross, because it was a completely different series. So this is an original die-cast toy from Genesis Climber Mospeeder rather than Robotech. So the Henshin Robo. So this is what I'm going to unbox now, and I have literally never ever looked at this before, so I don't know what this is going to be like. All I've seen is pictures. I'm hoping it's complete. I don't actually know. It's a fairly battered box, but that's no bad thing when it comes to price for these things. So I've literally no idea what I've got in here, how it all fits together, and how much effort I'm going to need to put into this for you to try and put it together. So, I do have, one of the things I did like about this auction was that although the box is fairly battered, I've got a little bit of instruction here which should help me to pull it all together, he says. Now, whether trying to do this on camera is a good idea, I don't honestly know, but I'm going to give it a go. So, convertible type Henshin Robo Legioss AFC01Z, actually, okay. As you can see, it's a red fighter jet and it's a red mecha. And it's also got a Batroid form as well, which looks like that's the in-between version of it. 10 meters long, 8 meters high, 4 meters wide, total weight 16.7 tons, engine main JG99M, max output 2050 SHP, max thrust 5100 kilograms times by 4, max speed Mach 2.5, 1800 meters per second, I assume. Armament, inboard missile, maximum 60, 18mm beam cannon, crew 1. The model may differ slightly from the one shown in the picture. There you go. Now then, can I carbon date it? I can't carbon date it. It's got a copyright symbol, which doesn't say who it's copyright of because it's in a foreign language. Various stickers to be applied there. Quite a number of stickers. But interesting though, it's all in English. So presumably this was designed for an American market, even though it's probably produced in China or similar. Oh, there's a lot of instructions there. Well, maybe I'll just have a yeah, I'm just gonna have a quick look at this because there's obviously going to be changing the armored diver into the armored fighter. Okay, changing the armored soldier into the armored diver. So what I was calling the Batroid form, I would call the armored diver, according to this. Okay, well let's just have a little look at it. Let's get it out and have a little shuff these and see what I can actually do with it. See if it makes sense out of the bag, so to speak. So I think this piece goes on the back at times at least. So I've got sort of back armour there, if I'm correct with that. I've got 2 tail fins here. Not quite sure where they're going to live. But I have a beam cannon, which is good. So I'm already fairly confident about completeness just off the back of that. Move that into shot there. Now then, as is often the way with these things, until you actually get them in hand, you don't really know how big they're actually going to be. And it's not a huge box. It's not a huge box. So let's get the main guy out. He looks very, very loose. Given the previous experience with that Excalibur, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Let's have a look. He's got some funny colouring on him. Oh, well, okay. That's very unlike most Transformer type, because what he definitely isn't is Diaclone. I've never heard of Gakken until I saw it mentioned in the auction. I'd never heard of Gakken as a toy company. Now what am I missing here? That, okay. Oh, that's clever actually. So his fist is concealed behind the intake there. Then you pop it out and then bring the intake down, or kind of, maybe. Yeah, okay, so the intake is just supposed to rest on the top then, okay. Let's just see if I can get him into his robot form, because that's more likely to be straightforward than the rest. Yeah, okay, so he's already there on that side. It's a very, very strange movement system. It's got a sort of, you can probably see there, it's on a sort of rod, which is what's governing how it then sort of folds down and over. So it sort of clicks down like that, but it doesn't seem to want to stay in place terribly much. So his gun would obviously fit in there. That's hilariously spinny. That's funny. He just doesn't want to. He doesn't really want to settle down into his form. I don't think he's quite little. Oh, hang on. Okay, legs going up. There we go. That's better. Now, will he stay like that? He's very, very loose. I think if I were displaying him, I'd be tempted to try and lock these joints somehow, because he's very loose. Woof. Okay. Now, I don't think that's the right way around for his head. Should his head actually be pointing in the opposite direction, I wonder? Ooh, hello. Ooh, that's a very lifty up head. Uh-oh. Actually, I wonder if this... Did they mention that his head was broken? It's been a while since I bought him, so maybe he's missing his head spike out the top there. I think there should be more of a spike there, so maybe he's missing that. It would be nice if he could actually hold his weapon. That's slightly rubbish. I mean, as I say, I know very little about these, other than their existence. I think that this would then go on his back. I just lift that up so you can actually see him, although he's not likely to play ball very much, I don't think. So yeah, I mean, this is, I think there were, I don't really know how popular Genesis Climbable Speeder was in Japan. I actually wonder whether or not the bike armour was the more sort of popular element of it in terms of the mecha that were in the series. I imagine that this probably goes on the back to hide a number of evils in terms of what's left over when it's transformed. I can sort of see where that would go, but I'm just putting that on very loosely there, literally, just to give you an idea. I mean, I think according to the actual image there, it looks like it probably wouldn't be that visible. It probably needs to go lower down, but I personally would not have gone for this conceptually. I think if it were to sit still, it would probably look quite cool. But I think it's the sort of one where you really need to read the manual and try and figure out what on earth you were doing with it, because it's clearly not wanting to stand up very convincingly at all. And of course it is old, but I suspect it might look better in jet mode. Let me see if I can convert it into jet mode off camera, and I'll come back to you. Yeah, so I think it's supposed to look something like that in flight mode, but again, it's also very, very loose. It's very difficult to hold it all together. I mean, you compare that with a proper Valkyrie that's got ratcheted arms and proper firm metallic joints. And this has got nothing on that. It's very, very plastic. I mean, there is some metal to it because there is some weight to it, but you know, it's the metal isn't being used to ratchet the arms or anything like that. It's just being used for joints, and it's not anywhere near as convincing as a Valkyrie. So you know, it is unfortunately what it is. I suspect it was probably a lot cheaper, and obviously it's a lot smaller than a Valkyrie as well. in terms of the original sort of Takatoku kind of version of the Valkyrie. So yeah, I mean that's just. I mean I guess it's a little bit of sort of, you know, Robotech history because it's not part of Macross history because Macross was something completely different. But those are the sort of parts it comes with. It looks like it actually needs a nose wheel. I don't think the nose wheel is actually integrated into the nose of the aircraft. So that hole is actually to put a nose wheel into. I don't appear to have that. So, you know, again, it's not anywhere near as integrated as the Valkyrie toy was, which is a shame because, you know, you wouldn't have thought it would take that much more effort to make it a bit bigger. But of course, this, you know, as I say, I don't know how popular a series this was in Japan in and of itself. So maybe there just wasn't the call for toys that were absolutely bob on. But this is, you know, this is the range of toys that are appropriate for Robotech because they all appear in Robotech. It's just that you'd have to gather them from various different series from Japan originally in order to get, you know, the sort of the full spread of everything that appears in Robotech. Because Harmony Gold, I did just do a brief check and I couldn't figure out immediately whether or not Harmony Gold actually had the rights to produce toys from Genesis Climber, Mospeada or Southern Cross. They only ever seem to have produced toys from Macross. So maybe their license didn't extend to toys, it only extends to the sort of copyright imagery of Mospeada and Southern Cross. It doesn't actually extend to merchandising rights based on that imagery. So, you know, again, little sort of question mark there from my point of view. This doesn't even look like it's had the stickers applied to it, which might be a good thing, I suppose. But I'm not sure that they're in the box either by that token. So, you know, it's one of those things, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, maybe when it was younger and it would have been stronger and therefore it would have been a more convincing transformation. But as it is, I just don't think at its age it's really going to hang together terribly well. And when you've tried a Valkyrie, very little else really compares, unfortunately, I think, unless you're trying particularly hard. So on that bombshell, I will leave it there. I doubt I'll be getting many more of these. These are just ones I happen to go for because they struck the curiosity chord. And given that I'm probably about to get struck by lightning even though I'm indoors, it might be a very good time to leave it. So cheers for now. Do like and subscribe.